I'm 34-year-old Elaine Matthews. Additionally, I served as the engineering director at till last month, my family's business. I gave Matthews Engineering Solutions my all for 12 years, just to sit. I was shocked when, at our quarterly board meeting, my mother declared me to be too pricey. My dad was unable to even look at me. For your pay, we can hire 3 young engineers. Kyle, my younger brother, tapped his presentation with a sly smile. Reference to the spreadsheet. Cost reduction, nothing personal. In silence, I gathered my things and left. I was surprised at how fast their frantic calls would start. Where are you watching from today before I go on with my story? If you have ever, click the like button and subscribe. Been caught off guard by disloyalty in the family. You'll want to hear what occurred next, I promise. I received my MIT degree with accolades, denying several offers of employment from tech behemoths that would have catapulted my career into the stratosphere. I was invited to join the engineering teams of Google, Apple, and Microsoft, but there was never any genuine inquiry regarding my destination. For 30 years, my father had dreamed about Matthews' engineering answers, and now it was also mine. At the age of 4, Dad founded the business in our garage. I watched him doodle as a child. Designs at the table in our kitchen. Our bookshelves are stocked with his engineering notebooks. When I displayed an early ability in science and math, the pride in his eyes was obvious. You have the engineering gene from Matthews, he would add, ruffling my hair. When I graduated from college, the business had developed into a reputable mid-sized company that specializes in industrial automation solutions from that garage operation. We weren't very big, but we had established a strong name for ourselves in the field. Father offered me a low-level job with no special treatment in exchange. You'll work your way up just like anyone else. I respected him for what he said. Those formative years were difficult, yet satisfying. I worked on the weekends when there were deadlines and canceled dates to complete projects. Loomed, delaying getaways when consumers required urgent assistance. I was the first person to arrive at work each morning and frequently the last person to depart. In essence, my apartment served as a place to sleep. In between workdays. It was more than just my employer. It was who I was. Within 5 years, I rose from junior engineer to project lead based on true merit and indisputable outcomes. By year 7, I was in charge of the entire engineering division and oversaw a staff of 28 people. Skilled experts who valued my leadership style and technical expertise. We worked like a well-oiled machine, finishing projects on time and within budget. My success came when I was awarded the 7-figure contract for Westbrook Manufacturing, which changed the course of our business. I studied their activities for months, finding inefficiencies and creating a personalized automation system that would boost their output by 30%. When their executive team was so thrilled by my suggestion that they immediately signed off on it, canceling it. Encounters with our bigger rivals. Dad took me out to dinner that evening, just the two of us. I've always known you were. Elaine, you're special, he said, lifting his glass. Your legacy will be this business. Someday. We talked about upcoming advancements and expansion ideas till closing. The relationship between us never felt more powerful. When Kyle started working with the company 3 years ago, everything changed. My younger brother had recently. After earning his MBA, he persuaded our parents that the company needed his newfound business acumen. As I had. KL contended that we should concentrate more on profit margins and growth initiatives, as we had been enhancing our technical reputation. I first appreciated his opinion. I believed that we could complement one another because we each have unique strengths. Dad appeared to delighted that both of his kids were working in the family business, and his mother had always had a fondness for the Matthews Dream Team, her youngest. While Kyle was having his welcome dinner, Dad contacted us. However, minor changes started happening quite instantly. After I spoke in a meeting, my mother, Diane, would turn to Kyle for approval. Before making judgments, she would ask, "What does Kay think about this?" when I suggested new technical directions. I observed Dad showing more deference to her, as if Kyle's business education was more important than his own engineering expertise. Theories. I stayed dedicated to the success of our business in spite of these developments. My group kept producing outstanding work, and we had our highest ever client satisfaction scores. I thought the outcomes would speak for themselves in the end. I was mistaken. During a strategy meeting 6, the first overt indication of problems appeared. Months following KL's arrival, I had been working on a proposal to increase our technical capacity for weeks into the expanding field of renewable energy systems, where our experience could be applied with little financial outlay. After I concluded my presentation, there was an awkward hush in the room. My mother, "That's an intriguing viewpoint," said at last. "Kyle, you said something similar last month in your growth report, didn't you?" Kyle gave a confident nod. "Yes, I have been studying the renewable energy industry. I believe Elaine's suggestion could be modified in a few ways, and make it work." As the topic changed and Kyle effectively repackaged my views as his, I sat in shock, while implying that my strategy needed to be improved. My dad, who was previously my biggest champion, just nodded in agreement. When the contract with Anderson Systems was up for bid, I spent weekends and evenings crafting our proposition. The biggest possible client was represented by Anderson in the history of our business, and their project was a wonderful fit for our team's skills. Following we secured the contract during the pitch process, which ought to have been hailed as my greatest accomplishment. My mother commended the team's work during the announcement meeting, particularly Kyle's financial projections, which made make a competitive bid. KL had actually simply provided a modest pricing spreadsheet. Item I had made significant revisions to. My engineering solutions were particularly mentioned by the client as the decisive. Nevertheless, my mom hurriedly added, "Kyle and Ella make such great brothers. Sister team." The next week, I learned that Kyle was designated as the Andersons' main point of contact. Account, the one I had managed to secure. When I questioned my mother's choice, disregarded my worries. Kyle is more knowledgeable on the business side. The customer must view our strategic vision rather than merely technical specifics. My engineering department's resources started to run low. The budget asks that. Having previously been regularly authorized now needed a lot more explanation. Upgrades to the equipment were delayed. And, in spite of our growing workload, employment freezes were put into place. Call expansion was approved in the interim. The marketing and sales divisions with little supervision. At a family meal, I heard my mom and Kyle talking about the need for reorganization in the corridor. They quickly altered the plan when they saw me coming. My mother focused her attention on me that evening and hardly spoke to me. Solely on Kyle's recent triumph in a golf event. Marcus Johnson, my most reliable coworker, a senior electrical engineer, called me aside after an especially heated project meeting. "Elaine," he said, "something's happening. There are rumors regarding significant. The engineering department is about to undergo adjustments. People are anxious." I brushed off his worries because I couldn't feel that my family would damage the division that had established the company's standing. "Most likely, it's just budget stress of the season," I told him. "Things will calm down after the Anderson project is launched successfully." The following week, I discovered that some firm data were no longer accessible to my team. I asked about it, and, uncomfortably, the IT manager clarified that the order had originated upstairs. That day, I ran into Kyle, leaving my dad's office, looking especially proud of himself. I spoke with my father over the phone that evening to voice my worries. His voice was unusually aloof, asserting. He suggested that we talk about work-related issues later at the workplace because he was too busy to do so. 12 years later, he had. Attending our weekly family brunch has never been too hectic for me. Typically a calm. My mother talked about Kyle's recent presentation to the board, which I had unexpectedly attended, for the entire time. Not received an invitation to go. When I inquired about it, she obliquely stated, "Secret business planning," and swiftly shifted the topic. Even with the growing evidence, I was unable to bring to think that my family would turn on me. I had practically centered my entire existence on engineering solutions from Matthew. My achievement was the company's success. The customers had faith in me. I was respected by my team. Undoubtedly, my family was aware of my worth. I therefore put in considerably more effort to establish my value. Personally, I monitored the entire Anderson project preparation process, making sure that all requirements were above and beyond expectations. I recorded each contribution, issue resolved, and efficiency gained. I avoided conflict with Kyle, supported business objectives, and maintained my composure in meetings. Looking back, I was denying what was obviously coming. I refused to read the signs, even though they were all there. The calendar. Late Thursday afternoon, the invitation arrived. Talk about strategic planning. 4:00 p.m. on Friday. Primary. Meeting space. There are no preparation materials or agendas connected. Only my parents. Kyle and I were listed as guests. There was something sinister about the time. Seldom were significant choices taken at the conclusion of a workweek, but I forced myself to ignore my discomfort and prepared a brief report on our ongoing initiatives just in time for instance. That Friday, they were already sat in the conference room when I got there, with my mother leading the table, with Kyle and my dad standing on either side of her. The actual arrangement was instructive. During the company's existence, my father had consistently taken the head position, my mom at his side. This family's visual reorganization. Before a single word was said, hierarchy made me shiver. "Thank you for coming, Elaine." My mom started by a protocol that seemed entirely alien to our family's dynamic. She had on clothes. She was dressed in her most formal work clothing, and her face was expressionless. "We have been carrying out a comprehensive examination of our costs and organizational structure." My dad gazed down at his student's hands. His customary friendly manner was totally gone. Kyle sat perfectly erect, with a little smile on the edges of his lips. He held his leather portfolio open in front of him. "As you are aware, the terrain is changing." My mom went on in a practiced voice. "Matthews, following a thorough analysis of our financial situation, Engineering Solutions must make adjustments to be competitive, and forecasts for the future. We've concluded that some structural adjustments are required." Still naive, I nodded, thinking that departmental reform was at issue. "Actually, I've been trying to increase the efficiency of I offered the engineering team. "I'd be pleased to offer my opinions on how we can streamline our procedures." My mom's. The expression remained unchanged. "Elaine, you won't have to do that. The board has already made its choice. Kyle and my parents make up the board. All three of them are opposed to me." Kyle assumed control and slid across the table is a printed presentation. Upon examining the numbers, a pretty clear picture emerges. He pointed while standing. "Create a bar graph that contrasts departmental costs. The salaries of engineers represent our biggest overhead, with the biggest personal cost being your position." He selected the subsequent slide, which included a pie chart with a distinct slice representing my pay. "Your present benefits package. 3 junior engineers with a combined higher output potential could be funded by including benefits." The space appeared to tilt as he spoke. "This has nothing to do with restructuring. I was the subject of this. We're getting rid of your place," my mother said bluntly, effective immediately. "The position of engineering director will be reorganized into several lower-level roles, all of which report directly to Kyle, the COO." I turned to face my dad, anticipating that he would protest, to stand up for me, to recognize my 12 years of commitment. He met briefly my eyes, then averted his gaze, a mask of unease covering his face. My voice, "Dad," cracked a little. "Are you in agreement with this?" Following a painful quiet, he spoke without raising his gaze. "Elaine, the numbers make sense." Kyle went on, "It's a business decision," as though this, in his presentation, emotional moment was just another bullet point. "A severance package that we've developed is very giving. 6 months pay, additional health benefits, and naturally, unpaid vacation leave." He thrust a folder in my direction. "Legal has already prepared the required documentation." The premeditation hit me like a punch to the body. Even though I had been putting in extra hours to make sure the Anderson project's Apparently, they had been planning my deportation by consulting with lawyers. However, I was able to state that the Anderson project. Next month, the implementation will start. They specifically asked me to be involved. I created the complete architecture of the system. We'll handle the changeover, Kyle said sarcastically. I've been using this account to follow you. I've created thorough notes on every technical detail, as you are aware. I nearly chuckled at the ridiculousness. Kyle had been on his phone for the majority of the 2 client meetings he had attended. He had been concentrating on developing relationships, so he requested me to summarize the technical details afterwards. This is an error, I asserted, finally finding my voice. I am respected by my team. The customers have faith in me. For 12 years, I have consistently produced results. I've given up everything for this business. The look on my mother's face stiffened. We need more unbiased leadership because of this type of emotional appeal. Elaine, sentimentality cannot be the basis for business judgments. Sentimentality? Incredulous, I echoed. Do you refer to that as my success record? The Peterson account, the Westbrook contract, and the industry honors our group has received. Kyle's interjection was fluid. Everybody. Accomplishments that we cherish. However, the business must change. It's basic math. He struck his pen against the spreadsheet. 1 director for the price of 3 junior engineers. Cost reduction, nothing personal. The informal brutality of that comment, which was eventually made with a sneer I will never forget. Everything is evident. This has nothing to do with business. It was a power move. And before I even realized the game had started, I had lost. Gathering what dignity I could summon, I carefully got to my feet. I'm going to assume that you want my office to be cleared out today. My mom gave a nod. HR is ready. Boxes for your personal belongings. An update has already been made to your system access. It had, of course. They hadn't even thought that I might have to defend my position. I did not open the severance agreement when I picked it up. I'll have my attorney looks over this. Call after me as I go to the door. Before you depart, we will want your building access card. I looked back one final time, admiring the scene. My icy efficient mother, my victorious brother, and my defeated. The man who once assured me that this business would be my legacy, father. Best wishes on your reorganization. Whispered. I hope you get what you're due. I felt as though I was moving when I walked back to my workplace. Through an odd dream in which familiar surroundings suddenly take on a dangerous quality. Co-workers I had passed in. As I passed them, people who had seen these hallways thousands of times before looked on in confusion. My expression revealing I couldn't conceal my shock. The nameplate for my office door, which said Elaine Matthews Engineering Director, stood out as a last memorial to the things I had created and destroyed in one afternoon. Indeed, there were cardboard boxes on my desk with the HR assistant clumsily lingering next to them. I can provide you with. She offered privacy, obviously uneasy about her job. Thank you. I was able to respond, but I heard my own voice. News spread quickly. Prior to packing my first box, Marcus showed up in my doorway, his expression a mix of shock and rage. Is that correct? When he saw my face, he lowered his voice after making his demand. Elaine. They are unable to do this. Weeks remain till the Anderson implementation. The group will not tolerate this. I kept systematically clearing my desk of family pictures, technical guides, and the metal. The Industrial Automation Association's plaque. Every item stood for a year of devotion that is now useless. Done, I stated bluntly, Marcus. With instant effect. It will be Kyle's turn. Kyle. Marcus didn't care. Concealing his disdain. He couldn't distinguish between a flowchart and a circuit diagram. This is insane. By that time, a group of engineers had assembled outside my workplace. Their reactions ranged from indignation to shock. Jessica Chin, in fact, the smart systems architect was crying. These were not merely coworkers. They were my family with a professional background. More devoted than my real family had shown themselves to be. I I pushed power into my voice as I informed them, I appreciate all of you. It has been a privilege to collaborate with this group. Keep up the fantastic work for which you are renowned. Marcus demanded to assist me in moving my things to the vehicle. My temper finally gave out in the parking lot, out of sight. I shuddered and then sobbed as I leaned against my car with boxes at my feet. It's not over yet. Marcus patted my shoulder clumsily and hard. I've never had a better engineer than you. Ever collaborated with. Any business would be fortunate to have you on board. 12 years, I muttered. 12 years of my life. The trip home was a haze of surprise and incredulity. The traffic signals were altered. I hardly saw any of the cars that were moving around me. That sneer on Kyle's face kept coming back to me. One director for the price of 3 junior engineers. When I first moved into my flat, it felt like a stranger's house. I would, over the years, never spending much time there because work always took precedence over personal comfort. It is now empty. As if to make fun of me. No significant other, few friends outside of work, and little personal belongings. I had given up everything. For a business that had thrown me away without question. I spent the whole weekend inside my flat. Telephone. Notifications gathered team members' worried messages. A few contacts in the sector who had somehow already heard the news. I disregarded them all since I couldn't think of any answers that wouldn't express how completely heartbroken I was. On Sunday night, my phone showed an alert that further twisted the knife. A reminder on the calendar for the weekly family meal that I had been to devotedly for many years. My mother texted me a few minutes later. Considering the current situation, it might be preferable to forego dinner this evening. It was a cold text message that was deleted, not even a personal call. Me from a different part of my existence. Sunlight poured through the cruelly bright Monday morning. I had neglected to close the blinds. I had nowhere to go for the first time in 12 years. Proceed. No team is looking to me for direction, and no tasks are requiring my attention. It was so disorienting that it was like losing gravity. At last, I made myself. To check my email, I discovered a letter from the Human Resources Department of our family business asking me to sign and send back by Wednesday for the severance agreement. The business letterhead and the logo that I had assisted in creating years prior seemed like one more treachery. Supporting notes have been provided by a number of former co-workers, including Jessica, who said, the team is in disbelief. Kyle revealed he would be taking over Anderson's project management duties during a meeting this morning. He was unable to respond to simple inquiries regarding the system design. This is going to go horribly wrong. Something inside of me felt. This exonerated him, but it was little consolation. I had put too much money into Matthews Engineering. Ways to enjoy its possible challenges, even if those challenges proved my worth. I tried reconciliation out of desperation on Tuesday. I gave my dad's. He had always advised me to use his private line for critical communications. Before it went to voicemail, it rang 4 times. I said, Dad, it's me, as the beep sounded. I believe we ought to discuss this choice. The Anderson project requires encountered oversight. Perhaps we can reach an agreement. My voice faltered a little. Give me a call back, please. He didn't. As my financial worries grow, circumstances, I at last opened the severance contract. Technically, the terms were favorable because Kyle had said, but had a disclaimer that would prohibit me from working for any rival engineering. 18 months of firmness. They were trying to fully marginalize me, not just push me away. That evening, I determined my financial runway. Using the severance payment and my savings, I could live the way I do now for a year or so without a job. It was supposed to be comforting, but instead demonstrated how completely unprepared I was for this unexpected turnabout. I was so sure of my worth and confident in my role that I had never given backup plans much thought. When I attempted to define my professional identity without mentioning Matthews, I came to a painful realization. Engineering. I had served as Elaine Matthews, the engineering director, for 12 years at Engineering Solutions by Matthews. My name and the company's had become entangled, and my personal and inseparable professional identities. I was just Elaine now. The void in that. I remained up until dawn thinking. Finally, on Wednesday, a second family member got in touch. My father's aunt, Susan. Sister, who had consistently stayed politely away from the family company. I listened to what transpired, she stated when I took her call. Elaine, it's unacceptable. Diane and James are making a grave error. Did Dad send you to see how I'm doing? With a flicker of optimism, I asked. Her hesitancy informed me. Everything. No, sweetheart. I doubt that he is aware of my call. That affirmation of, in some ways, my parents' total desertion was worse than the dismissal. Not only had they taken away my job, they had surgically removed me from the family. By the deadline, I refused to sign the severance agreement, rather sending it to a lawyer for employment who was suggested by a former college classmate. He was direct in his assessment. Although our at-will employment stayed allowed for the termination, the non-compete agreement was be unenforceable in light of the situation. Instead of filing a lawsuit right once, he suggested negotiating. By the conclusion of that first terrible week, the emotional haze started to clear and was replaced by clarity. Was something I hadn't anticipated. I characterized myself by my involvement in the I had been in the family business for so long that I had forgotten my own worth outside of it. If my relatives were unable to acknowledge the contributions I made, it might have been time to arrange a different table. 2 weeks went by before my phone rang with my father's number. There was a weird limbo of job searches and restless nights. I gazed at it. He ignored me before curiosity overpowered pride, and I was tempted to do the same for 3 rings. Elaine. His tone lacked the assurance it usually possessed. How are you? Really? I gave a bland response. That's how we're going to begin this discussion. He cleared his throat. I'm phoning regarding the Anderson requirements. The team is experiencing some trouble deciphering your paperwork. Naturally, it's not a call to. They needed something from me, so they called me to apologize or make amends. I uneasily allowed the stillness to linger. He added nervously, the implementation deadline is coming up. Kyle wondered if you could elaborate. Certain technical information. Kyle pondered. With incredulity, I repeated. Kyle, the same person who had the self-assurance to replace me. Kyle, who was supposed to be able to manage all the technical aspects of himself. Please, Elaine. It's business. Just what I was informed when I was let go. Just business, nothing personal. Following the extraction of a promise. To get him to re-evaluate the non-compete agreement, I guided him through the fundamental architecture queries that a skilled engineer would have deduced from my painstakingly created documentation. His perplexity was validated. What I had guessed. Kyle had no idea what he was doing. Jessica called the following day when she was eating lunch. Take a break. It's chaos here, she muttered after him. Kyle attempted to show the crew the Anderson implementation plan, but he unable to respond to basic inquiries concerning failover protocols and load balancing. At last, Marcus assumed control of the meeting merely to avoid the humiliation. Other than that, how are the preparations going? I inquired, attempting to sound just inquisitive rather than proven. We're already running late. Make a call. Continues to alter requirements in favor of cost over usefulness. Yesterday, there were 2 crashes in the test environment. Because he authorized configuration modifications without fully comprehending their implications. Similar rumors began to circulate over the days that follow. Marcus contacted to complain about orders for equipment being turned down. An additional engineer texted that Kyle compromised our quality assurance procedures by cutting the testing phase short in order to meet deadlines. Kept up. Jessica asked if we could have coffee 3 weeks after I left. When I got to the cafe, before she said a word, her worn-out appearance spoke for itself. Next up is the Anderson demonstration. Weak, she remarked as she stirred her unfinished coffee. We're far from prepared. The user interface is rife with defects, integration points are failing, and Kyle is living in total denial. I inquired, what's my father saying about all this? That presents another issue. Your dad appears absent. Although he shows up for work, he is not truly involved. Your mom and Kyle are in charge of making all the choices. Despite everything, I had a nagging worry for my father. He had consistently been enthusiastic about our work, participating in all significant advancements. He wasn't usually this disengaged. 4. My phone rang again, unexpectedly, a few days later. It was Elaine, my mother. She started without an introduction. I am aware that you have communicated with current staff regarding ongoing initiatives. Hi there. And, Mom, I said. I've had conversations with pals who work together. Is that an issue? After your departure, you shouldn't be talking about private business things. I didn't know it was against business rules to meet up with buddies. Maybe you ought to include that in the employee manual. Even I was astonished by my sudden capacity to push back. She hesitated, recalibrating, obviously. A new date has been set for the Anderson demonstration. Kyle stated that you gave your father some explanation regarding the requirements. Dad gave me a call with inquiries. I responded to them. That's all. One more pause. Would you be open to consult on the project? Just till the implementation is finished. We could set up fair recompense. The request was so bold that I genuinely chuckled. Let me clarify. They want to engage me as a consultant to address the issues caused by my absence after firing me for being too costly. Elaine, this is a request of professional civility. Those you collaborated with are impacted by the project's success. One thing she was correct about. My old crew and the reputation they had helped establish were important to me. However, the choice to replace me would only be justified if I returned as a consultant. Regretfully, I am not accessible for consultation. With purposeful politeness, I replied, work at this time. One of those 3 young engineers might be able to assist. Marcus called the following day with urgent news. There was no denying that the Anderson demonstration had been an catastrophe. Within minutes, the system had crashed. Important elements had not worked, and midway into the presentation, representatives from the clients had left. Call attempted to place the responsibility on the engineering staff. According to Marcus, his voice was tense with rage. Claimed that although we hadn't completely followed his instructions, the clients' why you weren't involved was expressly asked by the CTO. Claimed that your prior work was a major factor in their decision to choose us. My father left 3 voicemails that night, each one more begging than the one before it. Ella, we need to talk. The company is in trouble, was the last one to say. Don't call me back. Rather, I went to Marcus's residence the day after. In our years of working together, I had hardly ever seen him take a personal day. I am unable to. This is no longer the case, he said, pacing his living room. Kyle is ruining all we constructed. Your mother supports all of his poorly informed decisions for. What about the Anderson contract? People from the engineering team have already resigned, I said. They have 2 weeks to show us a functional system, or they will withdraw and seek legal redress for contract violations. He paused his pacing and gave me a direct look. It's not just about you, Elaine. No longer. The entire business can fail. A tiny bit of my vengeance. I didn't feel proud of part 1, but I suppose that's fair. But it would affect far too many innocent individuals. Clients who relied on our services, engineers who had trusted my leadership, and support employees who relied on their paychecks. Systems. I said, what do you think I should do, Marcus? And his response. I was shocked. Nothing. He sat down and said, at least nothing to directly help them. I think you should start your own company. Marcus said, leaning forward closely across from me. In the air between us, both thrilling and terrifying. Begin my own company. Although the idea had briefly occurred to me during restless nights, hearing it said out loud made it unexpectedly tangible. I'm serious, Marcus added, his face more lively than I had seen in weeks. You possess the industry connections and technological know-how, and now you have the ideal incentive. But what about money? I retorted, client partnerships, office space, and all the infrastructure that was built over decades by Matthews engineers. You would be starting with an advantage they stupidly rejected you from, he insisted, rather than starting from zero. The concept spread and grew over the course of the following several days. I produced spreadsheets that examine market positioning, competitive advantages, and startup costs. I conducted research on small businesses, loans, and spoke with a business lawyer on my severance agreement responsibilities I still hadn't signed. During another secret coffee meeting, I hesitantly presented the idea to Jessica, and she responded with, "Quick and passionate," she said, "I'd follow you in a heartbeat. If you offered them jobs, half of the engineering department would leave, so I'm not alone." I warned that they couldn't reasonably hire that many people right away. Perhaps they could, but... Leaning forward, she said, even a small team with the appropriate people might make an impact rapidly. The Anderson contract isn't the only one at risk. According to rumors, they're reluctant to bid on the Henderson project, which is scheduled for auction next month. Work with Matthews following the Anderson disaster. The Henderson project was brought up, and it triggered something in my thoughts. I had been cultivating a connection with Henderson Industrial Systems for years, anticipating the ideal time to expand their firm. They have a large industrial automation project coming up. My crew was excellent at just that kind of work. That night, I made a call that would change everything. Alexandra. Prior to becoming a prosperous venture capitalist, Reed was a classmate of mine at MIT. We had maintained intermittent communication over the years, with a focus on engineering and technology firms. Meeting from time to time at professional conventions. "Elaine Matthews," she replied kindly. "This is a surprising." With joy, I spent the next hour disclosing my circumstances with brutal candor, my termination, the betrayal by the family, and my developing strategy to launch a rival engineering company. Instead of showing pity, Alexandra made a perceptive inquiries regarding technical distinction, prospective customers, and market positioning. "Please provide me a business plan. Elaine, this has potential." By Monday, at last, she said. Possibilities. The weekend flew by, filled with market research, spreadsheets, and strategic strategy. I completed a 30-page business plan by Sunday evening, describing my goals for Elaine Matthews Engineering, a company name purposefully chosen to capitalize on my notoriety in the sector. Alexandra replied on Tuesday morning. "Let's get together. I'm ready to talk about a $1.5 million initial investment for a 20% equity stake." I was astounded by the amount, which was more than sufficient to rent a small office space, buy the required supplies, and cover operational costs while we pursued our initial contracts. More significantly, it was a vote of confidence from someone I greatly regarded for their commercial acumen. In just 2 weeks, I had obtained a tiny office suite in a structure across town from Matthews Engineering. Although it required some work, for a business that prioritized content above look, the industrial aesthetic fit my vision. Marcus was the first to formally join, leaving Matthews with a notice period that expires. Jessica arrived a week later, just as our office was about to be finished. In less than a month, 5 important members of my old, after their notice periods ended, the staff had promised to join Elaine Matthews Engineering, the local company. A brief piece about the new business, which was started by the former engineering director of Matthews, was published in a journal. Elaine Matthews brings more than 10 years of expertise as a leader in the industry. Despite having very little publicity, it got the precise audience I had intended for. William Henderson personally called me a few days after the piece was published. "Miss Matthews," he said, "I have been following your work for a while, and I was really impressed with the ideas you came up with for Westbrook Manufacturing. You've opened your own business." "That's right, Mr. Henderson," I said, attempting to maintain my composure in spite of. "We're taking bids for our manufacturing automation project right now, and considering recent. We are broadening our search for possible partners due to concerns regarding Matthews Engineering. Would your company be interested in putting forward a proposal?" It was the chance we required, a chance to gain instant credibility in the industry. The timing was difficult because the majority of my crew was on notice and we were still setting up our infrastructure. Nevertheless, certain possibilities are too significant to pass up. We would be proud to present a. I asked him, "When is your submission deadline?" he said, 3 weeks from Friday. I should also include that Matthews Engineering is going to bid as well. I hope it doesn't cause any difficulties. I told him that it wouldn't. Even if the idea of going up against my family so soon made my stomach turn, we'll concentrate on making the greatest option for Henderson Industrial. I spent the following 3 weeks immersed in the Henderson proposal. With the support of Marcus and Jessica, who took time off to assist, we worked on weekends and evenings to create a innovative strategy that made use of my in-depth understanding of the technical constraints and problems facing the sector. Instead of just automating current procedures, which is the typical strategy Matthews would probably suggest, we created a machine learning-based predictive maintenance system to foresee equipment faults before they took place. The technical breakthrough would position the company for significant cost savings. Henderson at the forefront of their field. The evening before the deadline for submissions, as we completed our proposal materials, Marcus raised his head from his computer and said, "Are you aware of what we've completed in a few of weeks? This proposal is more inventive than anything we produced in the past," he said. "The last 2 years at Matthews," Jessica said, nodding. "Something. Our current working style is different, it's more creative and collaborative." Knew precisely what they meant. Without the limitations imposed by my mother's and Kyle's cost-cutting tactics, risk aversion, we were able to focus on truly creative ideas. Felt happy once more. It brought back memories of my early engineering days, when the possibilities were endless. Presented our proposal the following morning, and we celebrated with champagne in our office, which was still partially furnished. Whether we were awarded the contract, we had demonstrated to ourselves that Elaine Matthews Engineering was a strong business with a unique strategy. 2 weeks later, William Henderson personally contacted to let us know that we defeated 3 other bidders, including Matthews Engineering, to get the contract. Demonstrated a degree of technical knowledge and inventiveness that, to be honest, wasn't found in the other bids. Miss Matthews, we're thrilled to collaborate with your team. The contract was smaller than the Anderson project, yet it gave us just what we required. Genuine income, industry acknowledgement, and confirmation of our methodology. More significantly, it signified my first noteworthy triumph as a self-employed company owner as opposed to a family worker. Swiftly around the business regarding the new company that had won the Henderson contract by defeating more established firms. A number of past customers contacted us to ask questions on our offerings, and 2 other engineers from my previous team filed their requests to join us after resigning to Matthews 6 weeks after winning the Henderson contract. We met the client's expectations by delivering our first implementation milestone on time and within budget. Was thrilled, offering a positive review that we prominently displayed on our just-opened website. By that time, our tiny office was bustling with activity, and the core group of 7 engineers had created a culture of cooperation that brought in more talent. We were efficient but lean, concentrating on high-value projects instead of volume. When an article of up-and-coming inventors including Elaine Matthews Engineering appeared in an industry newsletter, I at last felt that I had actually created something significant, not as a continuation of my family's heritage but as my own unique accomplishment. The business was flourishing, not merely surviving. Characterized by the very attributes Kyle had written off as costly extravagances, technical prowess, inventiveness, and demonstrated leadership. 3 months after Elaine Matthews Engineering was established, I was invited to the annual award ceremony for achievement in the automation business. Normally, I wouldn't have hesitated to go. Networking at these kinds of events has always been beneficial for commercial development, but I was aware that Matthews Engineering will be represented this year as well, putting myself at danger of having an awkward first meeting with my family since leaving. After talking to Marcus and Jessica, I made the decision to go because hiding would only imply weakness or guilt, which I no longer experienced. My new business was thriving with 3 more contracts secured and the Henderson installation moving forward without a hitch. Anything, I'd earned the right to be proud of my peers in the profession. The Grand Plaza Hotel hosted the event, a location I was familiar with from years of going to events similar to Matthews Engineering's representative. Wore a new dress as I entered the ballroom. I had actually had time to shop for a little but important upgrade from my previous workaholic lifestyle. I experienced an odd sense of serenity. I boldly interacted with former Customers and business associates, many of whom showed appreciation for my new endeavor. A few of them made references to displeasure with the recent performance of Matthews Engineering, although I was cautious not to promote such discussions. My business would be successful on its own merits, not by criticism of rivals, even if they were my previous family business. The inevitable meeting came. I was speaking with a representative of a software company about possible partnership during the pre-dinner reception when I sensed a presence next to me, and when I turned, I saw my father, who appeared older in some way, deeper than I remembered the creases around his eyes. "Elaine," he whispered quietly. "You appear good." "Thank you," I said calmly. "Pardon us, we were just talking about predictive maintenance system integration capabilities. In fact, I was hoping we could talk." He continued in private, but only for a little while. I apologized to my conversation companion and then followed my father to the ballroom's comparatively calm corner. Up close, the variations in his weight had dropped, and his typically assured stance had lessened, making his appearance even more noticeable. Without introducing himself, he added, "made a terrible mistake, Elaine. The biggest mistake of my life." I waited in silence, neither supporting nor opposing his admission. "I ought to have defended you since I knew I've always known how." Although he stumbled, "You are valuable to me as well as the company. So why did you not?" He shook his head when I asked, my voice steady despite the anguish that threatened to burst through. "Weakness, fear of conflict with your mother," she said slowly. "Kyle's persistent pressure. None of that justifies what I did." My mother showed up next to me before I could reply. Kyle looming nervously behind her. My mom's meticulously kept look displayed indications of stress, with her smile and makeup appearing a bit too heavy. Fastened. Elaine nodded stiffly in acknowledgement. "I see you've established yourself rapidly." "Yes," I said plainly. "I have." Kay made his customary confidence, but was unable to maintain it. "Your small business is generating a lot of buzz, which is remarkable for a boutique operation. We prioritize quality above quantity." "Thank you, Kyle. It appears to be functioning effectively." My mom's facade gave up a little. "The Anderson contract was cancelled last month. It wasn't news that certain technical issues arose after your departure." She admitted it, which surprised me even though industry rumors spread quickly. "I'm sorry to hear it," I remarked, and meant it. In spite of all, I didn't enjoy the business's difficulties impacting defenseless workers. In addition, my father mentioned disregarding my mother's alert. The Henderson contract would have contributed to the stability of the situation. I realized that I wouldn't have expressed regret or joy for my company's success in obtaining that contract. Kyle shifted around in his tie, obviously uneasy. "The problem is, we've been talking about the potential for cooperation, Elaine." I arched an eyebrow. "Cooperation, a strategy." "Cooperation," my mother explained, maintaining her professional tone in spite of the individual environment. "Matthews Engineering has built infrastructure and partnerships with clients." It immediately became apparent that the new firm possesses certain technical capabilities that we do not currently possess. Without my guidance, they weren't simply having difficulties, they were in grave danger. The engineering department's financial situation had deteriorated in the absence of the Anderson contract. I responded, "What exactly are you proposing?" "The Henderson project to replace it was in danger of collapsing." "We want you to return, Elaine," my father said, "not as an employee but as a partner and equal authority to make decisions. Your name was added to the company's leadership. The offer was made on any terms you like." Ludicrous and validating all at same. After writing me off as disposable, I appreciate the offer, I added thoughtfully, but I only realized my worth when I had to deal with the fallout from their choice. "But now that I've started my own business, we're doing great." My mother exclaimed, "We're family," with more emotion than I would have. The business has always been a family legacy, and I haven't heard from her in years. The family that dismissed me for being too costly. Gently reminded her that a family has elected to replace my 12 years of service with 3 inexperienced engineers. Kay was gracious enough to appear embarrassed. "I was mistaken, Elaine. I felt compelled to express my jealousy of your connection with your father, your technological expertise, and your position in the industry. Push you away to make a name for myself. His admission was unexpectedly candid, yet I informed them that it was really too late and that I had moved on. Ella Matthews Engineering is more than just a name, it's a distinct way of doing business. We're creating something new with a group of people that technical quality is something that the organization genuinely values. My father appeared desperate. Might not be able to survive without help. Elaine, all we made together, everything I built, could vanish. His remarks resonated even though I was determined not to be swayed. The business did represent decades of labor, including my own noteworthy contributions. Numerous workers who were unrelated to my. If it collapsed, firing would suffer. After giving it some thought, I proposed a substitute. I won't go back or combine our businesses, but I could be prepared to pay fair market value for Matthews Engineering. Specific criteria pertaining to restructuring. Their faces showed almost hilarious disbelief. My mother recovered. First, acquire the funds that you are unable to have. I have investors who, I gently interrupted, believe in my vision. Additionally, your company's existing market position probably makes the valuation very controllable. Kay appeared to object, but my father restrained him by putting a hand on his arm. Should have a more official discussion about this. Maybe next week. I mentioned my office. Tuesday at 10 a.m. I experienced a weird variety of emotions as I left to return to the networking event. Vindication, yes, but moreover, there was a startling sense of calm. The encounter I had imagined and feared had finally happened. And I had come out of the acquisition talks with self-assurance rather than resentful accusations. Lasted for 3 weeks. Until financial realities set in, my mother resisted the inevitable. Compelled her to accept it. The final contract contained clauses that kept the majority of current workers, but leadership was entirely reorganized, and Kyle assumed a non-executive position in business development where his MBA might truly come in handy. My father took a job as a senior technical advisor, which was an honor. My mother made the decision to retire after appreciating his founding efforts and realizing the company needed a new direction. Completely unwilling to accept a smaller part in the business she had helped create. The combined company kept the Elaine Matthews Engineering name, a choice that was both sensible and a personal recognition of my transition from employee to entrepreneur and brand continuity. The official announcement highlighted both companies' complementary strengths and our dedication to technical innovation. Although difficult at first, integration was eventually successful. Although some cultural differences were unavoidable, most Matthews staff members swiftly adjusted to our more cooperative strategy and prioritizing engineering excellence over cost reduction. A number of people expressed relief at avoiding the more chaotic atmosphere that had emerged following my departure. 6 months after yesterday, we held a company-wide celebration to commemorate the Henderson Project's successful conclusion. As we stand in front of the 43-person squad, a notable expansion from our original 7, I thought back on the remarkable path that had led us to this point. A year ago, I felt that having a company name that matched my own was essential to my professional identity. I informed them when that. I felt bereft when the link was broken, but I've since learned that our worth isn't based on our affiliation with organizations, but rather by the honesty, originality, and commitment we offer to our work. Our relationship stayed intact as my father nodded in the back row, his face displaying a mix of pride and remorse. Challenging, but we were progressively re-establishing a relationship founded on respect for one another, instead of hierarchical family relations. I went on to say, this company isn't defined by its founder or its name. Our shared dedication to excellence defines it, and everyone in this room plays a part in that identity, regardless of whether you joined us during the acquisition or have been here from the start. The cheers that followed seemed to confirm not only my leadership skills but also the essential reality I had learned through hardship. Self-worth originates internally and is not derived from family acceptance or outside validation. As the festivities came to an end later that night, Marcus came up with 2 glasses of champagne. He grinned and drank to the most costly engineer who was well worth the money. I chuckled and clinked my glass to his in order to attend pricey but ultimately pointless lessons. I never realized how resilient I was until I went through the betrayal and rebuilding process, which made me realize my own worth without the approval of my family. Most significantly, it had shown to me that sometimes letting go of what you believed you wanted allows you to find what you really need. Under my direction, the business keeps thriving and expanding in ways that it would not have been feasible under the limitations of my family's plan. I have created a business culture that prioritizes cooperation over hierarchy, creativity over tradition, and lessons gained from the agonizing experience of being underestimated, technical brilliance above cost reducing. My relationships with my family are still being worked out. My father and I have created a new level of professional respect that is progressively permeating our interpersonal relationships. My mother maintains her distance, still finding it difficult to accept the power shift. Kyle and I to up a friendly working relationship, even though the damaged trust might never completely recover. The greatest achievement, however, is not professional validation or a successful business, but rather personal development. That resulted from losing my family and deciding to rise above betrayal instead of letting it define me. Inheritance, I forged my own route, one based on true ability rather than inherited status. Have you ever? How did you rebuild after being betrayed by the people you trusted the most? Tell us about it in the comments section below. If my story of perseverance spoke to you, please click the like button and, for more tales about conquering life's unforeseen obstacles, subscribe. Keep in mind. Thank you for listening, and until the next time, remember that sometimes the most traumatic endings result in the most potent beginnings. Have faith in your worth even when others don't.